Good morning, you are watching A News. I'm Bakhtiar Asanov and let's see the headlines. Donald Trump and Elon Musk slam USAID as corrupt and incompetent at press conference. Benjamin Netanyahu says ceasefire will end if Hamas doesn't return hostages on Saturday. Pakistan Navy concludes Oman 2025 drill with 60 nations. U.S. President Donald Trump and billionaire Elon Musk are taking aim at the U.S. Agency for International Development, calling it corrupt and ineffective. Their criticism is part of a broader push to cut government spending, with foreign aid now under heavy scrutiny.
Speaking at the White House, Elon Musk, who now oversees U.S. government efficiency, questioned USAID's impact, claiming it interferes in elections.
I think that there are some worthy things, but overall, if you say what was the bang for the buck, I would say it was not very good. And there was far too much of what USAID was doing was influencing elections in ways that I think were dubious and do not stand the light of day.
President Donald Trump went further, calling USAID corrupt and pledging stricter oversight.
The USAID is really corrupt. I'll tell you, it's corrupt. It's incompetent and it's really corrupt. And I can't imagine a judge saying, well, it may be corrupt, but you don't have the right. You got elected to look over the country and to, as we say, make America great again, but you don't have the right to go and look and see whether or not things are right that they're paying or that things are honest that they're paying.
The remarks have sparked backlash, with pro-foreign aid advocates accusing the administration of undermining critical humanitarian efforts. Following Trump's order, USAID staff were placed on leave and its website went offline. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has been appointed acting administrator. Trump says the cuts have already uncovered massive fraud.
We have massive amounts of fraud that we caught. I think we probably caught way over a lot of billions of dollars already in, 2 weeks?
With Musk at his side, Trump has now ordered federal agencies to prepare for large-scale staff reductions, signaling further shakeups in Washington.
U.S. President Donald Trump has doubled down his plans to take over Gaza to rebuild it as he met with Jordan's King Abdullah in Washington, D.C. on Tuesday. They discussed regional security, aid efforts and the future of the Strip amid ongoing tensions. However, King Abdullah says Jordan has its own plans for Gaza.
U.S. President Donald Trump and Jordan's King Abdullah met in the Oval Office on Tuesday to discuss Middle East stability and humanitarian concerns. While Trump reiterated his proposals to rebuild Gaza, King Abdullah announced that Jordan will reveal its own plans for the Strip. He also said that the Arab consultations are continuing, mentioning an upcoming meeting in Riyadh, and announced his country's plan to take 2,000 critically ill children from Gaza.
I think the point is how do we make this work in a way that is good for everybody? Right. Obviously, we have to look at the best interests of the United States, of the people in the region, especially to my people of Jordan. And we're going to have some interesting discussions today. I think one of the things that we can do right away is take 2,000 children that are either cancer children or in a very ill state to Jordan as quickly as possible, and then wait for, I think, the Egyptians to present their plan on how we can work with the president to work on the Gaza challenges.
Trump, however, insisted that the U.S. would have Gaza and relocate its population, suggesting land in Jordan and Egypt as alternatives.
Really a beautiful gesture.
He dismissed concerns over Palestinian resistance, calling it a war-torn area that the U.S. would redevelop.
And with the United States being in control of that piece of land, a fairly large piece of land, you can have stability in the Middle East for the first time. And the Palestinians, or the people that live now in Gaza, will be living beautifully in another location. They're going to be living safely. They're not going to be killed, murdered, and having to leave every 10 years, because I've been watching this for so many years. It's nothing but trouble.
Trump maintained that Jordan and Egypt would eventually agree to host displaced Gazans, noting both countries depend on U.S. economic and military aid. While Jordan remains a key U.S. ally, Abdullah avoided commitments, emphasizing that Arab leaders would wait for Egypt's proposal before taking a position.
Our Ubi Shbander from Washington has more on Trump's meeting with Jordan's King Abdullah.
President Trump on Tuesday issued a direct warning regarding the situation in Gaza. If Hamas does not release the hostages by noon Saturday, the president said that, quote, all bets are off. The Israeli government is demanding the release of all remaining hostages held by Hamas. Otherwise, the Israeli Defense Forces have said that they will resume combat operations. President Trump issued his warning with King Abdullah of Jordan by his side in the White House. The two leaders met to discuss the ongoing tensions in the Middle East. President Trump praised King Abdullah, a longtime American ally, as a great leader. The king brought with him his son and heir apparent for his meeting with Trump. In brief remarks, King Abdullah told members of the press that he and President Trump believe that despite ongoing challenges, that peace and stability in the region remain possible, and that he will work closely with President Trump, whom he called a man of peace. The Jordanian monarch also announced that he has put together a plan to accept 2,000 Palestinian children suffering from cancer and other illnesses for medical treatment in Jordan. When asked to comment on President Trump's plan to take ownership of Gaza and resettle Palestinians living there to other surrounding countries, including Jordan, King Abdullah diplomatically deflected the question and said that further discussions must take place with Egypt and other Arab countries on Gaza, and that he must take into account the best interests of the Jordanian people. President Trump said that his plan will include large-scale economic development in Gaza, but it would take years. The president said that he hopes that the Jordanians and Egyptians would allocate land to safely resettle Palestinians from the destroyed Gaza Strip. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, who has indicated that he opposes the Gaza plan, will reportedly postpone his planned visit to Washington amid ongoing concerns, according to diplomatic sources. At least 50% of Jordan's population is of Palestinian origin, and Egypt is the only Arab country with a border crossing into Gaza. President Trump has recently suggested that he could withhold aid to Arab countries if they do not accept his Gaza plan. I'm Ube Shabander for A News, Washington, D.C.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu also warns the ceasefire in Gaza will end on Saturday at noon if Hamas doesn't release their remaining hostages. He added that the military is prepared to resume intense fighting until Hamas is defeated.
The decision that I passed unanimously in the cabinet is this. If Hamas does not return our hostages by Saturday noon, the ceasefire will end, and the military will return to intense fighting until Hamas is finally defeated.
As the future of the ceasefire in Gaza remains unclear, UN humanitarian officials reported a significant increase in aid coming into the enclave since the temporary truce came into effect on January 19th.
UN humanitarian officials reported a significant increase in aid to Gaza since the ceasefire began on January 19th. Supplies such as food, medical and shelter items, including tents, are now flowing into the region after restrictions were eased.
We have been able to scale up humanitarian operations significantly with food, medical and shelter supply and other aid during this ceasefire period. And we, of course, reiterate and echo the voices that it is imperative that this continues and can continue to be expanded and made sustainable.
However, Hamas accuses Israel of violating the ceasefire by halting critical aid, such as 60,000 mobile houses and 200,000 tents, as well as heavy machinery to remove rubble and fuel. Israel's military agency countered that by saying that over 100,000 tents had already entered Gaza since the ceasefire. denying claims that aid, like tent poles, was blocked. UN officials confirmed that aid operations have scaled up significantly. However, when asked about certain restrictions on supplies, including those deemed dual use, items that can serve both civilian and military purposes, they deferred to Israeli authorities for clarification on these restrictions.
The European Union has vowed firm and proportionate countermeasures after Donald Trump's decision to impose 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum imports to the United States.
The European Union has condemned US President Donald Trump's decision to impose a 25% tariff on steel and aluminum imports, set to take effect on March 4th. EU leaders have vowed firm countermeasures. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen have criticized the tariffs as bad for business and harmful to consumers. She pledged that the EU would not let the decision go unanswered and that it would protect its economic interests. The EU has a significant stake in this dispute, as steel exports to the US account for around $3 billion annually.
We deeply regret these decisions and announcements. The EU sees no justification for the imposition of tariffs on our exports, which is economically counterproductive, especially given the deeply integrated production chains established through our extensive transatlantic trade and investment ties. Tariffs are taxes, bad for businesses, worse for consumers.
European Union Trade Commissioner added that while the EU would protect its businesses and workers, it is committed to dialogue and finding a mutually beneficial solution. The US move comes amid rising trade tensions globally. Trump signed proclamations on Monday, raising the US tariff on aluminum from 10% to 25% and eliminating country exceptions and product-specific exclusions. US President also hinted at future tariffs on cars, semiconductors and pharmaceuticals, despite potential retaliation from other countries.
The United States and the United Kingdom have refused to sign a global declaration on inclusive and sustainable artificial intelligence at the AI Action Summit in Paris. The move is seen as a major setback to the summit's ambition to build an international consensus around the new technology.
The Paris AI Summit brought together representatives from nearly 100 countries to create a unified framework for the ethical and sustainable development of artificial intelligence. More than 70 governments, including France, China, India, and the European Union, have endorsed the declaration, stressing the importance of AI being open, transparent, secure, and beneficial to all. However, the absence of the US and the UK from the list of signatories has raised questions. While neither country provided an immediate explanation, a spokesperson for British Prime Minister Keir Starmer stated that the UK engages in global AI discussions but prioritises national interests. London did, however, sign a separate Coalition for Sustainable AI initiative. Meanwhile, US Vice President J.D. Vance, speaking at the summit, criticised Europe's stringent AI regulations, warning they could stifle innovation.
Many of our most productive tech companies are forced to deal with the EU's Digital Services Act and the massive regulations it created about taking down content and policing so-called misinformation. And of course, we want to ensure the internet is a safe place, but it is one thing to prevent a predator from preying on a child on the internet, and it is something quite different to prevent a grown man or woman from accessing an opinion that the government thinks is misinformation. Meanwhile, for smaller firms, navigating the GDPR means paying endless legal compliance costs or otherwise risking massive fines.
France's Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot downplayed the US decision, calling it understandable and stating that discussions remain open for further participation. The next edition of the summit is set to take place in India.
Bolivia remains on high alert after intense rains have swept through the country, leaving 24 dead and hundreds displaced. La Paz has been the worst affected area, with flooding submerging homes and forcing evacuations. The Bolivian Meteorology Service, SANEMI, has issued an orange alert warning of rising water levels in multiple rivers for the next 10 days. According to reports, overflowing rivers have forced residents to seek refuge in a church in the northern town of Tipuani. 8 out of 9 regions have been affected. Authorities warn that heavy rains may continue into early March. The Pakistan Navy's multinational exercise Aman 2025 wrapped up in the North Arabian Sea. 60 nations took part in the drill in a bid to strengthen maritime security.
Pakistan's Navy concluded exercise Aman 2025 after days of naval drills and strategic discussions in the North Arabian Sea. The exercise, which began last week, is held every 2 years to enhance maritime security and international cooperation. This year, 60 nations participated, including Bangladesh, China, Indonesia, Japan, Saudi Arabia, and the US. The Navy stated that the event demonstrated Pakistan's commitment to peace under the motto "Together for Peace." Chief of Army Staff General Asim Munir observed naval operations and maneuvers during the International Fleet Review on board Pakistan's ship Mo-Awin. Commanding Officer PNS Mo-Awin, Captain Humayun Yaqub, highlighted the exercise's expansion, noting it had grown from 28 nations in 2007 to 60 in 2025. The event featured warships, aircraft, and special forces, where participants engaged in strategic discussions on maritime security.
Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan completed a 2-day visit to Malaysia, reinforcing ties in trade, defense, energy and diplomacy. Invited by Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim, the visit marked over 60 years of diplomatic relations. Both leaders signed 11 agreements between the two countries, expanding the Turkey-Malaysia Free Trade Agreement and strengthening defense cooperation through joint development and counter-terrorism efforts. They also committed to advancing zero-waste practices, advanced cooperation in education, tourism and space technology, as well as pledged support for UN membership for the Palestinians. BP plans to drill 6 new wells in the Shah Deniz gas field in the Caspian Sea to maintain stable production. Currently, 21 gas wells at the field are in operation.
BP plans to add 6 new wells in the Shah Deniz gas field, one of Azerbaijan's key gas reserves, to maintain stable production in the coming years. Currently, BP operates 21 gas wells in Shah Deniz, located in the Caspian Sea, which plays a crucial role in Azerbaijan's strategy to increase gas exports to the European Union. Under a 2022 agreement between Baku and Brussels, Azerbaijan is expected to double its gas supplies to the EU, reaching at least 20 billion cubic meters annually by 2027. In 2024, the field's production increased from 26 billion cubic meters in 2027-2023 to 28 billion cubic meters. The current daily output stands at 76 million cubic meters, close to the field's total capacity of 79 million cubic meters. In addition to gas production, BP is also engaged in oil production. In 2023, the company began production at the new Azeri Central East offshore platform in the Caspian Sea. This project aims to offset declining output at the Azeri Chirag Gunashli oil fields. Azerbaijan's oil production is expected to remain at 29 million tons per year, or 580,000 barrels per day in 2024 and 2025. According to BP, the Azeri Central East platform produced 4 million barrels of oil in 2024. This figure is expected to rise in 2025 as new wells are drilled.
Natural gas storage in Europe has fallen below 50%, a significant drop from the 67% occupancy rate of last year. The decline raises concerns about the region's energy security and its ability to meet future demand.
Natural gas storage, a vital component of Europe's energy security, has dropped to approximately 49%, a significant decrease from the 67% occupancy rate at the same time last year. The EU's annual natural gas consumption exceeds 400 billion cubic metres, a significant amount in relation to Europe's total storage capacity of around 113 billion cubic metres. Among the 27 EU member states, 18 have natural gas storage facilities, which are crucial for managing supply and ensuring energy security. Storage levels are being closely monitored amid concerns that the market may tighten this summer as Europe faces increased demand to replenish its shrinking gas reserves. Among EU countries, France, one of the region's largest energy consumer, holds the lowest natural gas storage occupancy rate at 29.85%. The country is also failing to meet the European Commission's new target for natural gas storage, remaining well below the 90% target set for November 2025. While France struggles with its energy management, some EU countries are faring better, with Portugal's gas storage fully stocked, followed by Sweden at 88% and Spain at 69%. These varying levels shows the differences in preparedness across the region. Once reliant on Russian gas, the EU's imports from Russia have drastically reduced due to the ongoing war in Ukraine. As a result, the amount of Russian gas transported to Europe via pipelines fell by 28.4% in 2023 compared to 2022, reaching just 14.6 billion cubic meters, according to data from the Ukrainian government. Additionally, the natural gas transit agreement between Russia and Ukraine expired on December 31st, 2024. To ensure energy security, EU countries have turned to liquefied natural gas imports and implemented efficiency measures. Researchers say that current EU gas storage levels shows the failure of gas security policies since the 2022 crisis. Experts predict a gas shortage by the end of winter, potentially leading to costly policies that could trigger a global rush to replenish supplies, impacting the EU as well as neighbouring regions Asia and Latin America. The energy crisis is far from over, with long-term challenges ahead for Europe.
Tourists in Turkey can step back in time at the Roman bath courtyard of Stratonikia, known as the City of Gladiators, after archaeological excavations have restored several columns. This work is part of the continuous preservation work at this UNESCO World Heritage Site. Stratonikia, one of the largest marble cities in the world, has been a focal point for archaeological research since excavations began in 1977. The city, with its rich history spanning from the Hellenistic, Roman and Byzantine eras to the Medes, Beylik, Ottoman and Republic periods, continues to reveal new findings year after year. Professor Bilal Saud, head of the Stratonikia excavation team, shared the progress made at the site.
We have been conducting archaeological digs, restorations and surveys on a variety of ancient structures, including the Roman bath complex. The recent work in the Roman bath area focuses on the palaestra, or the sports area, which has been excavated in detail over the last 2 years. In the recent excavations, the team uncovered 36 columns from the bathhouse's courtyard. Last year, we completed the excavation of the columns and all associated materials. With the intact materials from these columns, we've successfully reconstructed them, placing their upper structures back in place.
Visitors to the site will now be able to walk through and admire the complete Roman-era columns, along with their decorative elements, offering a glimpse into the past. The project has unveiled layers of history, spanning from the 1st to the 7th century AD, reflecting various additions and alterations to the structure over time. This restoration effort is part of the Heritage for Future project, which aims to protect and preserve Turkey's ancient treasures for future generations. We are done for now, but don't go far. Stay tuned for more and have a wonderful morning.